Guys, we're out of ID. Snail. Snail become car. And Ryan Reynolds plays the snail. There's no other explanation on how you even come up with a concept like this. I need to know what they were doing in DreamWorks Studio to come up with the cultural phenomenon known as Shrek 4. And also this movie. How did they even pitch this movie? This is literally what happens when capitalism goes unchecked. This movie cost $127 million and it made $300 million back. Guys, what were we on in 2013? Were we so deprived of movies in 2013 that we had to resort to Planes, Snail, and The Croods? It's not even that the movie is bad. It's just that how do you even pitch the idea of a movie where the premise is that a snail goes fast? What if Snail was fast instead of slow? And another guy just said, what if we just turn Snail into a car? The reason Snail become car is because Snail go in car, drink nitrous, somehow since nitrous is a gas, and suddenly becomes a Toyota Corolla. How did drinking nitrous add a radio to the snail? Why does Snail have indicator? Why does Snail have backing up sound? Is he a truck? Is Ryan Reynolds a semi-trailer? Turbo is actually a Transformers movie. This movie starts with Snail. I know, crazy. Specifically Theo, watching a man literally inspired by the shape of a Dorito, Guy Gagne. I still don't know if he's Italian or French, and frankly, it's funnier if I don't know. This is your typical, I wanna be blank when I grow up, but Theo is pulled out of this fantasy world by his brother Chet. Theo is destined to be a tomato guy, harvester, stopper. They really don't explain. All we know is that Theo is a snail that wants to go fast. This movie takes inspiration from another movie, which is Highly Suspect. Okay, it's basically a carbon copy of Ratatouille. Not saying this movie is bad, but I'm also not saying it's good. Both follow the story of a small animal that dream of being something which is so out of the norm for their species that all their peers can do nothing but laugh at them. But this movie is better because it has Ryan Reynolds. If you close your eyes, you can almost imagine he's Deadpool, without the swearing or anything that makes Deadpool fun to watch. We see a montage of Turbo messing up his only job, and because he gets bored, he decides to race a tomato down and almost loses. And everyone makes fun of him because how dare you have a dream? You will live by the job and die by the job. No ambition for you. Okay, but I am kind of on their side because he's a snail. I can't get over this. He's a snail. And his dream is to go fast. It's after Theo is made fun of where we're introduced to Sid from Toy Story. No, scratch that. This kid's actually worse. All Sid would do was mess with his toys. This kid is just murdering small little insects. Oh, there were no signs. Where did we go wrong? Theo actually tells the kid to square up before Chet takes him away and saves him. We see Theo back in the shed watching this ambiguous European guy while drinking acid? This is gonna sound like Cinema Sins, but where did he get this drink? I guess the people in the house bought it, but how did he open the can? It's here where Guy is giving an inspiring speech and is about to give Theo the answer he's been looking for all his life. But then he short circuits the TV and decides the best course of action is to knock the TV off the table. I'm sure no one living in this house heard that or even cares. Side note, how did he get his shell painted? We see Chet doing the usual of lecturing Theo when all of a sudden a giant tomato dubbed Big Red decides to finally fall. It looks like they were waiting for this tomato to fall for a while just by looking at all of their reactions. Big Red decided it wanted to be really funny that day and fall in the garden. No biggie, just send a few snails out and get that bad boy back. But today is Gardener Day. Time to give up. Or so we thought. Ryan Reynolds decides to put his immense speed to use and race a lawnmower. He did not win. Theo, distraught about losing a race, decides to snail his way over to a highway overpass. How? How long did this take? By my calculations of just looking at the average speed of a snail and seeing how far a highway is from me, it would have taken Theo, the average snail, almost 20 hours to make it about half a mile on the highway. You know, maybe a movie about snails going fast isn't the most accurate portrayal of real life, who knows? Theo looks to pull a secretariat, but stops himself before getting blown away and landing in the midst of a drag race in the LA River. These are just the cars from the Car Street Racer gang, like literally 1-to-1. Theo becomes a hood ornament for a hot minute before getting sucked into the engine of a car. And instead of either being crushed by a piston, getting blown to smithereens during the combustion of said piston, he ends up drinking NOS and survives this. Apparently, injecting nitrous in a snail leads to not only the snail going fast, but to somehow turn him into an economy car, a truck. The first thing he notices is that he can turn a radio on in his body. Theo then quickly learns that he can go just as fast as any Indy car. What a coincidence. He got sucked into a muscle car and now he has a V6 open wheel engine inside. He ends up giving Discount Sid actual lifetime trauma and a fear of snails by just straight up breaking his ankles. Due to how baller Theo is, he gets kicked from the snail factory alongside his brother and they are forced to leave this garden. Hold on, I have the perfect photo for this. As they're in the process of leaving, Chet gets scooped up by a crow, which leads to Theo ending up in the crow's mouth and actually fucking murdering a bird on camera. 2013 animated movies and death, man. They're then swiftly kidnapped by Theo. They are taken to a snail race which is so amazingly edited. They are pitted against Samuel L. Jackson, Snoop Dogg, the judge from The Good Place, and another guy, I don't know. They all start making engine noises from their mouths, and like I said, the editing is perfect. Theo obviously smokes everyone here and breaks the race course as well, and no one is concerned. Well, we see that Tito and friends are all a part of a dying strip mall, or just a dead strip mall. Everyone is desperate to get people to shop here and eat at their shops, but it just doesn't happen. Tito believes that Theo would be what revitalizes the strip mall and stop them all from struggling. His big plan? A billboard. Is he allowed to do that? Meanwhile, we are introduced to the Snail Racer gang. One of them is named Skidmark. That's all I wanted to say about this. His name is Skidmark. Also, Snoop Dogg, why is he here? How did they make snails look cool? These are snails. I constantly have to remind myself about this. These are snails. They literally start sonic grinding and are able to straight up beat turbocharged V6 NOS infused Theo in this race. Anyways, Tito is struggling to think of ideas for how to use this medical anomaly to his advantage, when a truck with the Indy 500 logo rolls up right behind them. And Theo does the most, to be honest. He didn't have to do all that, but okay. Also, real talk, but why does he leave a blue trail? Is this like his slime? But why does it stop glowing? Tito is fully convinced that his snail should race in the Indy 500. Are we sure there isn't a gas leak at the strip mall? Long story short, Tito eventually convinces his friends to invest $20,000 for the registration fee of the Indy 500 and head off to Indianapolis. Without doing a lick of research or calling the organization, Tito tells his brother that technically a snail isn't banned from racing in Indy 500, which isn't even correct because the first rule of the Indy 500 is that this is a race for high performance cars. For some reason, this scene has really good and realistic cinematography, and I can't believe I just used the word cinematography in a video about a movie about Ryan Reynolds, the snail, going fast. I really hope you guys are still watching this. On the way to Indiana, Theo gets a new shell and is reborn as Turbo, the racer from Wreck-It Ralph. This is the moment Theo turns into Turbo Heisenberg meme.wav. What the fuck? So the gang makes it to Indianapolis. And did they do a whole road trip in a taco truck? The gang enters the speedway and Tito makes his way to the registration desk with a foolproof plan to get Theo registered. He wears glasses. After the registration desk guy rightfully kicks Tito out for trying to enter a racer that literally is not in the Indy circuit at all, not even for being a snail. Theo decides the best course of action is to start ripping the track. This gets the attention of one kid who says, "Whoa, that snail is fast!" You know what? He's right. That snail do be fast. Anyways, the best part, and honestly the only part of this movie people remember plays. You see the snail moving fast. You slow, you gon' get past. You see him gaining
position, but first he won't be last.
Planes wishes they could do an auto-tune scene like this. Theo scores an average of 226, which is apparently enough to qualify for the race, with one key problem. This is a snail. The president of the Indy 500 comes out to a press conference to say that he simply cannot let a snail race in the Indy 500 and refuses turbo entry. Okay, but real talk, Mr. President, what's the risk versus reward on this issue? At worst, a snail dies. We literally see that throughout this whole movie. So even in this snail-centric universe, snails aren't really the alpha, and people shouldn't really care about them. And at most, you get the most eyes ever on the Indy 500 by simply letting a dumb snail race. The president stands firm on this decision until Guy Gagné steps in and protests for the snail to race with him. If I haven't mentioned this before, he is my favorite character in this movie. Like, he is literally the epitome of an alpha male.
Let him race.
Just me.
Let him race.
Whole frame, my face.
We learn to know that the only reason Guy protested for the snail was because he has beef with the snail. Bro straight up threatened a snail and said that underdogs never win. Okay, fuck you too, I guess. No, actually, that's just the alpha male mentality. We cut to race day where, like, I'm just confused on how short the time from qualifiers to race day was. We see all the racers line up for the race, but none compared to my man Guy Gagné, who had a red carpet all for himself. The race starts and immediately we realize that Theo did not ever practice for this race. He is immediately seen as struggling because, and again, I reiterate, he is a snail. How did this movie make it past the meeting room? I will never understand. Theo is understandably being absolutely destroyed by these cars in the beginning of the race, since he is a snail and really does not know what he's doing. Until the first pit stop, where Samuel L. Jackson reminds Ryan Reynolds that he is a snail and not a car. What am I saying? But it is during this pit stop where Turbo finally is in his element. That element being that snail is fast. Theo realizes he can go under the cars, which, if we're being real, I don't know how that's so much of a game changer. He's so small that he can just squeeze between two cars, but I digress. Apparently Theo unlocked a new branch in his skill tree because he struggled going under just one car and then now can smoothly go under all the other cars in this whole race and just starts gaining all the speed. It was at this point while watching the movie where I had to do a lot of research and I realized that Indy cars are not F1 cars and that F1 is just super expensive and uses cutting edge engines and technologies as compared to Indy cars, which use good old American V6s and a whole lot of freedom. Apparently I have to say yeehaw. It's too late for this. Theo starts gathering all the style points and lap after lap just keeps dogging on the competition, all scored to Eye of the Tiger. Since unlike planes, this movie actually had a budget, unfortunately, until the final few laps. Bear with me. Theo is hot on Gagné's heels, who I realize is basically the Chick Hicks of this universe. Why do I relate everything back to cars? What's wrong with me? Chick Gagné pushes Theo into the marbles, which are bits of rubber that have accumulated on the outside edge of the track. Throughout the race, which, yes, is a real thing, I had to Google it too, Theo ends up colliding with the wall and breaks his shell open, which causes him to start losing power. How do these powers work? Like, why does the shell breaking cause anything? Is the gas inside the shell what's causing the super speed? Is speed stored in the shell? The writing room didn't really think this through. Horrible world building on their end, I have to be honest. Tito sees the condition Theo is in and decides to pull him from the race, but Theo will not go down without a fight. He powers on and speeds his way back into the race while fighting his powers constantly going in and out. This should have been the easiest win for Gagné, as all he would have to do is wait for Theo's powers to cut off and secure the victory, but because this man is an actual alpha male, he attempts to overtake Theo by driving in the marvels, which does not end well. Gagné causes the whole race to basically be shut down, and it's during this crash where Gagné pulls off Theo's shell, which makes his powers fizzle like a soda can. The raceway is gridlock. There are several deaths, and all that people can care about is about this fucking snail. Theo's shell is now fully broken. There's a giant hole in his shell where, when seen, my friend lovingly said to put a finger in it. Theo's car battery dies and he is unable to start his engine. Therefore, he cannot finish this race. which causes him to hide in his shell. Chet rides in on a crow, because I did not talk about the B plot in this movie, and he convinces Theo to finish the race, not because of any larger reason or perseverance, but because people have invested so much money and time into a fucking snail, only for him to stop inches from the finish line. Theo then starts to slowly slide his way to the finish line, but Guy Gagné cannot let that slide. He single-handedly flips a whole Indy car over and starts dragging that bitch. Do you know how much an Indy car weighs? Over 1,700 pounds. And this guy's just dragging that. And while dragging this car, he starts stomping and trying to just murder Theo in broad daylight. This movie then uses a tactic known as foreshadowing, wherein throughout this movie, Chet had told Theo to tuck and roll for safety. Guess what Theo does? He tucks and rolls and makes it across the finish line, winning the race. Why does this guy have to drag his whole car if all Ryan Snailman had to do was cross it himself? Guy should have won just by running across the finish line. Therefore, this movie is a 0 out of 10. At the end, we see that Theo winning the Indy 500 has caused the strip mall to get all the business LA has to offer. Everyone is showing up to see Theo the Snail, and we see Tito give his brother a brand new smart stove. God damn, how much money did they win? Oh, now I see why I really wanted to enter that race. Holy shit. This movie ends with all the Snail crew with updated shells that are all rocket powered and propeller powered. And did the toy guy make all this? Now I'll admit, this movie has so much more going on in it that I didn't go over. The brother dynamic is wonderfully executed. You can really feel the defeat in the strip mall crew and how lifeless they are, but it's just the sheer absurdity of the concept of this movie that has always stuck with me. I saw this movie very close to release, and ever since I'm just like, why? The people in the writer room were either really high or really desperate, because why? Am I saying the movie is bad? No, not really. It's really well animated. It has a banging soundtrack, and the characters are really unique and well portrayed. And you can really tell DreamWorks had money because look at this fucking cast. I once again gotta say, Ryan Reynolds plays a snail that goes fast. Anyways, guys, it's 3 a.m. This video was supposed to come out a week ago, but my friend who helps me with a lot of stuff and reacts with me, he got invited to this thing called Ish's Purge server, and apparently it's like a big deal, and he has to put time in. I don't believe it. I think the fucking YouTube channel. Who the fuck is Ish? Anyways, probably gonna just go back to random commentary videos. I have a video about licensed video games I think that I'm gonna make. Have that script going. Stream my music. Tito sees the competition Theo is in. Oh my god, why is their name? Tito sees the...